Chapter 491 Dongfang Che is chasing us. For 3 consecutive days and 3 nights, Dongfang Che traveled at lightning speed, casting acceleration spells all the time, and finally gradually approached the dangerous place that Bailey Wuyu had mentioned. However, when he was only a few steps away from his destination, Dongfang Che suddenly slowed down like a deflated ball. His heart was full of contradictions and struggles. He didn't know whether he was confused because of a momentary impulse or because he was afraid that when he really arrived at the scene, he would witness a scene that he could not bear. And Axia, who had been silenced, finally had the spell on her body lifted. He followed Dongfang Che cautiously, and looking at his young master's distraught look, he couldn't help but feel worried. Axia has followed Dongfang Che for more than 10 years. How could he not understand his master's thoughts? Although he was a little confused about Bailey Wuyu's feelings, he knew very well that Dongfang Che's concern for her was more than ordinary. Sir, the canyon a few hundred meters ahead is the dangerous place the eldest princess mentioned where they'd ambush her royal highness. Chia said softly, shouldn't we go take a look? There was a hint of hesitation in his words, as if he was also hesitating whether to move forward. After a pause, Chia noticed that Dongfang Che was a little timid, and added, what if her highness is blessed by fate and is not in danger? Dongfang Che gritted his teeth, clenched his fists, and finally took a step forward as if he had made up his mind. But before he had walked too far, a strong smell of blood hit him in the face. His face turned pale in an instant, and his legs began to tremble uncontrollably. He couldn't help but quicken his pace, but his steps became more and more unsteady, and he even staggered a little. At this moment, his eyes fell on a broken sign on the ground, which was Bailey Wuyu's life sign. The royal family of Lingyuan Kingdom has their own pair of fate cards since birth. One piece was placed in the royal garden and guarded by the royal guards. The other one is carried with you. If they felt that they were doomed to die, the royal children would crush the jade tablet and transmit the last image before the death to the paired life tablets in the royal gardens. The life tablet will also shatter, and the image of the victim 1 cup of tea after crushing the life tablet will be transmitted to the royal family, so that they can avenge them or prepare for their funeral. Bailey Wuyu even crushed her life token, so doesn't that prove she's in grave danger? Thinking of this, Dongfang Che felt a black screen in front of his eyes and almost fainted. Axia hurried forward to support him and shouted anxiously, Sir, please hold on. Dongfang Che slowly squatted down, picked up the broken sign with trembling hands, tears welling up in his eyes. His heart seemed to be torn into countless pieces, and pain and despair overwhelmed him like a tide. Just when Axia thought that the other party would completely collapse, Dongfang Che's eyes suddenly changed. His slender jade-like fingers quickly formed extremely complicated seals on his chest. After hitting the broken life plate, he closed his eyes and stood still. After a long time, Dongfang Che's body suddenly shook for a moment and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Son. Axia hurried forward to support Dongfang Che. Although the latter's face was still pale and his lips were stained red with blood, there was a stubbornness in his dignity, which made him even more energetic. She's alive. Just one sentence expressed the thrill and joy just now. Ellipsis. Chapter 492, A Swift and Decisive Style. What? Axia had never heard of a royal family member who could still be alive after his life token was broken. But he was afraid that his young master would fall into madness again, so he did not dare to raise any questions and could only follow his young master and continue forward. Seeing that his young master was about to use the acceleration talisman again, Axia quickly stopped him. Sir, even if we are outside the imperial capital and our immortal power is unlimited, we still can't withstand your endless use of it. You have been using it for 3 days and 3 nights in a row, and just now you activated the tracking vitality array, which consumes a lot of immortal energy. The immortal energy in the immortal world is extremely thin now, and I am worried. No problem, I'll follow you. But Bailey Wuyu's crisis has not been resolved yet. I have to rush to my mother's camp before she reunites with her army. Since the Empress and Bailey Wuyu's poems were able to sneak into Bailey Wuyu's army, there must be their spies in the army led by Dongfang Ya. Given the unscrupulous style of the current Empress and the eldest princess, if the spies are not caught, not only will Bailey Wuyu's life be in danger, but his mother Dongfang Ya and the entire Dongfang team will probably always be in great danger. Dongfang Che was completely unaware at this time that he had unknowingly embarked on the path of resisting the monarchy. Little did they know that not far from the bloody place where the battle had just taken place, beside the underground river in the cave, a dozen or so people were tied up and kneeling in front of Bailey Wuyu. Behind her stood the new army members, who were either nervous or confused. Chu Yue stood solemnly beside Bailey Wuyu, and behind him stood Nangong Yan and Yi Xincheng on his left and right. Bailey Wuyu changed his previous nonchalant and dandy appearance, and his whole temperament became sharp and fierce, just like a killing god who had fought bloody battles countless times on the battlefield. She looked at the dozen or so people kneeling there as if they were a group of insignificant ants. Since you're so eager to serve Bailey Wuyu, then enjoy my hospitality. After saying that, Bailey Wuyu snapped his fingers in the air. A group of people in black clothes and black armor emerged from the water and knelt down in unison before her. Greetings, Your Highness. We are at your disposal, Your Highness. Bailey Wuyu looked calm, but the group of new soldiers behind her looked at each other, with shock unconcealed in their eyes. Isn't it rumored that Bailey Wuyu is uneducated, unskilled, and a dissolute playboy? Then what about her previous fake injury to catch the spy of the new army's eldest princess? Now so many well-trained people appeared out of nowhere and treated her with such respect. What did it matter? What Bailey Wuyu wanted was for this group of new soldiers to be intimidated. But she ignored them for the time being and gave orders to the black armor guards. Imprison them in purgatory, and leave them with a single breath. This is the precious gift I will leave for OU Bailey Wuyu and the Queen Mother in the future. Yes. A dozen black armored guards escorted the dozen spies and actually left by water. The next moment, Bailey Wuyu made another gesture. This time, it was her personal guards from the princess's mansion who brought up 4 people. They were Ning Luo and Situ Yuna who had been imprisoned in the prison van before, as well as Ji Chen and Shen Tuyin who were originally in the new army. Bailey Wu Yu looked at the four people for a long while before slowly speaking to Ji Chen and Shen Tuyin. Under such a chaotic situation, you two risked your lives and insisted on rescuing these two people from the prison van. This has already puzzled me. After you four were safe, you didn't help Bailey Wu Yu's spies to assassinate me, nor did you take the opportunity to escape. Instead, you helped me capture those spies. This makes me even more confused. Bailey Wu Yu's brain probably can't think of such a series of strategies to deal with me. But Bailey Wu Yu's tone suddenly changed, and his next words made everyone present look subtle. Ellipsis. Chapter 493 Give her a sense of security. However, I have many enemies. There are countless people in this world who want to kill me, so I have to be on guard. The four of you are trying so hard to save me, don't you have any other intentions? After all, the hearts of people in this world are unpredictable. How can I know that you are not spies planted by other forces around me? Bailey Wu Yu's voice was cold and tinged with sarcasm. Her eyes were as deep as a bottomless lake, making it difficult to discern her true thoughts. Her eyes slowly swept over the four people in front of her, without any trace of personal feelings. Nangong Yan, who was standing aside, saw this and secretly groaned in her heart. He knew Bailey Wu Yu's personality too well. This man has always been suspicious, so how could he easily trust Ji Chen and the other four? At this moment, Nangong Yan felt as if her heart was being bitten by millions of ants. After all, Bailey Wu Yu's treatment of spies is notoriously cruel. He was worried about the future situation of Ji Chen and others, and was also afraid of Chu Yu's situation after everyone returned to the fairyland. Just when Nangong Yan was hesitating whether to plead for Ji Chen and the others, Bailey Wu Yu's previously sharp tone suddenly changed again. But if I really execute the four of you, or take you to my dungeon and torture you severely, I don't think I will be so happy. After a pause, she hadn't spoken yet, but Ji Chen, who was kneeling straight, spoke first. I wonder how we can convince your highness that we are not anyone's spies, but rather that we want to join you and be loyal to you. These words were spoken with great solemnity, as if they contained thousands of words. The speaker's voice should have been clear and pleasant, but at this moment it revealed a rare seriousness. This seriousness is not a pretense, but comes from the sincerity of the heart. There was a hint of the youth's unique sincerity in that voice, which moved people. Even someone as knowledgeable as Bailey Wu Yu couldn't help but look at the speaker a few more times. Her eyes fell on Ji Chen, and she saw that the young man had a tall and straight figure, a handsome face, and a heroic air between his brows. However, what is even more attractive is his eyes, which are clear and bright, shining like stars in the night sky. In just a moment, she actually understood the compassion and gave Chu Yue a look. The latter stepped forward, took out 4 black pills from his collar, and handed them to Ji Chen and the other 4 people. If you want to show your loyalty to Her Royal Highness, please take this medicine. From now on, if you dare to have second thoughts about His Highness, you will be punished by heaven without His Highness having to take action. Moreover, you are incapable of doing anything that would endanger His Highness. How? I dare not. Before he could even utter the word, eat, Ji Chen was the first to take the pill and swallow it. Shen Tuyin, Ning Luo and Situ Yuna followed closely behind. Since the junior sister, Yu Yu in this life is suspicious and insecure, they should give her enough trust and a sense of security. The eyebrows of the beautiful woman with the carefree and distant dark eyebrows raised slightly without leaving any trace. Finally, his subordinates released the 4 of them from custody. Afterwards, he carried out a swift and resolute reorganization of most of the remaining new troops, and led everyone through the underground waterways in the cave to the war-torn area in the south. If Bailey Wu Yu found out that she was not really killed, he would definitely want to make a fuss about Bailey Wu Yu's dereliction of duty and failure to arrive on time to support the Eastern Border Army. But Bailey Wu Yu will try his best to marry Dongfang Che, so how can he let Bailey Wu Yu get his wish this time? Ellipsis. Chapter 494, Crisis in Southern Xinjiang. The southern border of Lingyuan Kingdom not only borders 2 other human countries, but also borders the Yunnan Kingdom of the Sea Clan and the Yu Kingdom of the Demon Fairy Clan. It is one of the most chaotic and difficult to manage areas in the entire fairy world. Although the Dongfang army has a residence in the imperial capital, most of the women of the Dongfang family are stationed in southern Xinjiang. They can only return to Beijing for a short time to reunite with their men when southern Xinjiang is relatively peaceful. However, in order to show her special care for the Dongfang family, the empress allowed Dongfang Che to live with his family in southern Xinjiang until he was 16 years old. He only returned to the imperial capital on his 16th birthday. His father and he were supposed to live in the imperial capital all year round. But his father was a rare master of alchemy in a century, so he had always followed his mother Dongfang Ya as a military doctor. His 2 elder sisters, Dongfang Chan and Dongfang Xing, were also major generals who had made many military achievements. Rather than saying that the family was rarely together, it would be more accurate to say that Dongfang Che lived alone in the Dongfang mansion in the imperial capital, being served by a room full of servants all year round. The whole family felt that they owed him a lot and doted on him the most. Whenever they came across rare treasures or new gadgets, they would definitely send them to the imperial capital for him immediately. Normally, the family would take turns returning to the capital to stay with him for a while. Therefore, Dongfang Che is not lacking in love, but is well protected. Half a year ago, when the news came out that Dongfang Che was imprisoned in the princess's mansion by the crown princess Bailey Wu Yu, if Dongfang Ya had not suppressed him with all her might, and Bailey Wu Yu had not given the entire Dongfang army a drug that restricted their cultivation, Dongfang Che's 2 sisters, Dongfang Chan and Dongfang Xing, would have already led the Dongfang army to the princess's mansion to rescue him. Now they still don't know that Dongfang Che has regained his freedom, but they're still upset about Bailey Wu Yu suddenly removing the medicine that restricted their cultivation. The eldest sister Dongfang Chan is very straightforward and speaks without reservation. I said Bailey Wu Yu wasn't so kind. Why did she suddenly lift the suppression on our cultivation? Turns out she was sent by the queen to help us quell the war in southern Xinjiang. How dare she come? If she hadn't imprisoned my younger brother, fearing that even God would restrict our cultivation if we caused trouble, how could southern Xinjiang have become so chaotic in just half a year? Now she's pretending to be sympathetic, only the queen is pampering her. Big sister, walls have ears. You'd better not address her highness by her name. The second sister Dongfangxing is gentler in nature. She is like a military advisor in the military camp and is also more cautious. But the eldest sister Dongfangchan didn't care. What are you afraid of? Who in the Eastern Army doesn't hate that guy? Who would go to her and tell tales? Report. A scout rushed in, his face anxious and serious. General and the two major generals, the demon fairies and the sea creatures have joined forces and are attacking our main camp. What? The eldest sister Dongfangchan immediately swung her sword and rushed out of the tent. This bunch of bastards. I haven't really dealt with them in all these years, so I really think I can give them face, right? Dongfang Ya, who was sitting on the seat, rarely stopped them. Instead, he asked the second-in-command Dongfangxing to follow, while he began to deploy the battle in an orderly manner. The Eastern Army originally had nearly 100,000 people, so it was easy for them to deal with the hundreds of thousands of war-torn immortals. But for some reason, the number of demon fairies and sea creatures this time was as high as 200,000, and there were nearly 100,000 classified scattered fairies rioting, which really caught the Eastern Army off guard. Seeing that the trend of defeat was becoming more and more obvious, the eldest sister Dongfangchan couldn't help but curse. Ellipsis. Chapter 495 Mother-in-law, please accept my greeting. Where do all these rioting immortals come from? It's all the fault of the incompetent royal family like Bailey Wuyu. Otherwise, how could our Eastern Army be shelved for half a year, allowing these rebellious forces to flourish? The eldest sister Dongfangchan became more and more angry as she thought about it, and her moves became more and more brutal, as if she was chopping these riotous immortals as if they were Bailey Wuyu. The second sister Dongfangxing also had a rare cold expression. Even though we haven't been able to suppress them in the past 6 months, the doubling of their numbers is truly abnormal. Furthermore, the Sea Clan and the Demon Immortals have always been at odds with each other, yet they've managed to combine forces with the human rebels to attack our Eastern Army. This anomaly must be a demon, and we must not take it lightly. As soon as he finished speaking, there were cries of surprise from not far away. A large number of Eastern troops fell into the rebel trap. Moreover, this group of rioting immortals was obviously different from the previous ones. They came prepared and were well aware of all the offensive and defensive formations and methods of breaking talismans that the Eastern Army was best at. The Eastern Army, which had always been invincible, was really in an extremely passive state. Soon, only the fighting force centered around Dongfang Ya, Dongfangchan and Dongfangxing was left to fight stubbornly. I have one last teleportation spell. I will teleport you to a safe area later. You must report the riot in southern Xinjiang back to the imperial capital as quickly as possible and inform the Empress to request support to prevent the riot from spreading and affecting the entire Lingyuan kingdom and even the surrounding people. Mother, please come with us. The eldest sister Dongfangchan's eyes were red. It was not that she didn't understand, but she was unwilling to leave her biological mother in the dangerous war scene. But Dongfang Ya has made up her mind. Silly child, I am the core of the Eastern Army. If I had fled and retreated, our entire Eastern Army would have been nailed to the pillar of shame as a deserter. How can I face my ancestors if you send me to the underworld? This is a military order. I'm going to activate the teleportation spell. You guys evacuate immediately. Mother. The two sisters spoke at the same time, filled with grief and reluctance. Don't make a fuss. Don't cry. Don't be scared. I am here to ensure your safety. At this time, the sound of Bailey Wuyu jumping around came from not far away. She was holding a golden sword in her hand, and leading a group of new army soldiers wearing black armor behind her. With a crushing force, she cut a bloody path among hundreds of thousands of rioting immortals. They were still in a trance until Bailey Wuyu's extremely aggressive and beautiful face appeared in front of the mother and daughter. You. The eldest sister Dongfangchan was speechless for a moment and had no idea what to say. Bailey Wuyu grinned at them, extremely heartless. I'm not late, am I? Hey. After a pause, Bailey Wuyu bowed politely to General Dongfang Ya. Mother-in-law, please accept my greeting. Even though Dongfang Ya was knowledgeable and experienced, he was still confused by Bailey Wuyu's bow. After realizing what was happening, Dongfang Ya quickly moved aside, adhering to the principle of distinction between ruler and subject, and thus suppressed her anger. Your Highness, please stop talking nonsense. Chair is engaged to the eldest princess. Please don't tarnish her innocence. Their engagement was confirmed as a rumor long ago by the Queen Mother herself, allowing Che to make the choice himself. Mother-in-law, don't you know this? As he spoke, Bailey Wuyu chopped off the mob that came to kill him with his backhand, smiling confidently and brightly. The Queen Mother said, let our Che choose for himself, he will naturally choose me. The three Dongfang family mother and daughter. This princess brain is probably a little. Chapter 496, Her Royal Highness the Crown Princess saves her husband. Bailey Wuyu seemed unable to understand the complicated and impolite expressions in the eyes of the three of them. He turned around and made a quick battle and quick decision gesture to the Xuanjie army behind him. The next moment, each of these black armor army soldiers had something like a small grenade in their hands, and threw it into the chaotic army where no Eastern army was present. Boom, boom. The bombardment was so intense that the originally aggressive mob was instantly blown into pieces. The remaining half of the army saw that Bailey Wuyu's Xuanjie army still had land mines in their hands, and their morale was instantly dispersed. In addition, Bailey Wuyu's Xuanjie army took advantage of the chaos just now to rescue all the Xuanjie soldiers in the trap, which dealt a heavier blow to this group of rioting immortals. In a short while, they threw away their weapons and fled in all directions. Seeing this, Bailey Wuyu immediately put away his murderous aura and ran to Dongfang Ya and the other three mothers and daughters with a smile on his face to ask for credit. Mother-in-law, two sisters-in-law, am I very powerful? You are welcome. These are what I should do, and there is no need to be polite to me. From now on, we are all family. Not to mention that the three of them were speechless. Nangong Yan and others behind Bailey Wu Yu also felt that her current appearance was really unbearable to look at. Nangong Yan stroked his forehead speechlessly. I told you before, she always does unexpected things in this life, so you must be mentally prepared in advance so that you won't be unable to accept it. Now, do you understand what I mean? Ji Chen's mouth twitched. Ever since she rushed over and shamelessly called General Dongfang mother-in-law, I was already in a mess. Ning Luo frowned. In the past, I only knew that junior sister was outspoken and unruly. When she spoke harshly, she could really make people angry to death. I never thought that junior sister could be so shameless. Situ Yuna was a little sad. Is this what it's like to fall in love with someone for the first time, without reservation, with all your might, passionately, and at all costs? He had never been treated like this by Chu Yu. As soon as he finished speaking, Situ Yuna felt 3 icy cold rays of time shooting straight at him, as if to torture him to death. He finally realized that he had said the wrong thing and shook his head repeatedly to try to make amends. No, no. Yu Yu loves each and every one of us very much, but she expresses her love in different ways to different people of ours. Are you right? Shintu. Humph. Shintu Yin snorted coldly, turned his face away, and didn't want to pay any attention to Situ Yuna. When Situ Yuna was thinking about how to continue to smooth things over, a lone figure appeared not far away. Without any obstruction from the Dongfang army, he stumbled all the way to Dongfang Ya, Bailey Wu Yu and others. When they saw the person coming, their expressions changed. He turned out to be Axia, the servant who had always been beside Dongfang Che. But at this time, Axia was covered with bruises, his face was pale and almost bloodless, and he seemed to be hanging on to his last breath. The moment he saw Dongfang Ya and Bailey Wu Yu, he finally relaxed and called for help intermittently. Sir, the young master was besieged by the mob for 3 days and 3 nights, and he used his last teleportation talisman to rescue his subordinates. Hurry, hurry and rescue. Before he could finish his words, Axia fainted due to exhaustion. Dongfang Ya picked up Dongfang Che's personal belongings from Axia's hand and prepared to cast the tracking spell. But before the spell could be cast, Bailey Wu Yu rushed in a certain direction and disappeared in an instant. The mother and daughter were stunned for a moment. The second daughter Dongfang Xing shook her head helplessly. The crown princess must have placed a tracking device on me without my knowledge, otherwise how could she have been so sure of following me? Ellipsis. Chapter 497 Want to bully him. This Bailey Wu Yu, I thought she had changed, but I didn't expect her to still be like this. The eldest sister Dongfang Chan cursed inwardly and immediately followed. The second sister Dongfang Xing reminded behind her. The crown princess is a spiritual and physical practitioner, and can cast a spell to accelerate herself. A few breaths have passed, and you can't catch up. That's also worth chasing. Dongfang Chan could never completely trust Bailey Wu Yu. She was afraid that Bailey Wu Yu would be bullied if he and Dongfang Che were alone together, so she followed them with all her might. Ji Chen and the other 5 people looked at each other and followed quietly. Yi Xincheng was originally still hesitating whether to follow along. He couldn't tell why, but he always felt that the auras of the 5 men including Nangong Yan were particularly compatible. There seemed to be an invisible and particularly harmonious aura between them and Bailey Wu Yu. Although the person involved, Bailey Wu Yu, did not notice it, he even maintained a questioning attitude towards the other 4 men except Nangong Yan. While he was thinking, a fiery red figure suddenly returned to Yi Xincheng and pulled him over. What are you still standing there for? Let's go check on that fellow Bailey Wu Yu. With her black armor army watching over the scene, nothing will go wrong. After saying that, Yi Xincheng was passively pulled away by Nangong Yan. The order received by the Xuanjie army was to protect the Dongfang army, and Chu Yue led them to continue to assist in the post-war situation. Although Ji Chen and others' current cultivation is considered powerful, it is far inferior to their cultivation 300 years later, and their speed is naturally not as fast as Bailey Wu Yu. I followed him and then lost him. At this time, Bailey Wu Yu followed the tracking breath and found Dongfang Che at the top of the mountain. Dongfang Che was under siege and his spiritual energy was about to be exhausted. He wiped out the mob in one go. However, Dongfang Che was completely exhausted due to the non-stop travel and fighting. He missed a step and fell towards the cliff. Hey! Bailey Wu Yu quickly grabbed his wrist in midair. She could easily fly away on her sword. The people of Lingyuan country only thought that she was practicing both spiritual and physical cultivation, and the sword was just the weapon she chose as a physical cultivation tool. Little did she know that sword cultivation was one of her hidden cards. But when she saw a platform and a cave protruding from the cliff more than 100 meters below, she suddenly changed her mind and landed there carrying the unconscious Dongfang Che. Looking at the scene in the cave, Bailey Wu Yu smiled with an ambiguous smile. As I read in the book, there are many caves on the cliffs, and many of the caves have springs or hot springs. TSK. With such a good opportunity, if I can't capture our Che, I will be really sorry for this hot spring. Who are you going to capture? Dongfang Che's faint voice suddenly came from Bailey Wu Yu's shoulder. Bailey Wu Yu froze for a moment, then immediately resumed his cynical demeanor, his smile carrying an undisguised teasing look. Ah Che, the person I've always wanted to take down is you, don't you know? After a pause, her small hands touched his slender waist without hesitation. She could clearly feel the stiffness of the person beside her. Instead of restraining himself, he became even more unscrupulous. Ah Che, the way you're acting now really makes me want to just bully you mercilessly. You, shameless. It was one thing for Dongfang Che not to dislike Bailey Wu Yu, but he really couldn't accept her being so reckless. Ellipsis. Chapter 498 The Silent Stubborn Donkey. After being disturbed by Bailey Wu Yu, Dongfang Che's originally translucent white cheeks turned slightly red. But Bailey Wu Yu not only did not stop, but also tore off his belt, and his black robe was instantly opened. Under the snow-white shirt and trousers, you can vaguely see her broad shoulders and narrow waist, and her figure is extremely seductive. Bailey Wu Yu swallowed twice unconsciously. The image of the lustful woman who was greedy for other people's bodies was too obvious. You, dirty. Dongfang Che's father brought him up very well, and he would only scold him with these few words. After all, in a country where women are superior, Bailey Wu Yu's behavior is no different from a man in a country where men are superior forcibly trying to take off the clothes of a decent woman. How could Dongfang Che not be excited? Even though Dongfang Che now knew that he had vague feelings for Bailey Wu Yu, the way she treated him made him feel that he was not respected or cherished. Stop. Dongfang Che growled, but due to lack of energy, his voice did not have much deterrent power. Bailey Wu Yu just chuckled with an ambiguous tone, raised his eyebrows at him in an extremely ambiguous way, and even tried to put his hand into his shirt. You, poof. Before he could finish his words of blame, Dongfang Che was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood. The next moment, a magic pill was stuffed into his mouth, and the suppressed depression gradually dissipated, and he felt much more refreshed. Bailey Wu Yu supported him, patting his back intermittently to calm him down. You've been holding this pent-up anger in your heart for half a month. If I don't find a way to get you out, it will hurt your foundation. Bailey Wu Yu was a female doctor in her fourth life. Although the pulse of the immortals in the immortal world is different from that of mortals in the mortal world, they also have similarities. The moment she grasped Dongfang Che's wrist and felt his pulse, she discovered the root cause of his internal injuries. She chose the most frivolous way to make him spit out the blood. Dongfang Che was not stupid. After he realized what was going on, he understood Bailey Wu Yu's intention. Thinking of his overreaction just now, his face turned red and white, and he couldn't say a word for a long time. Just when he was in awkward silence, Bailey Wu Yu did something that made him extremely puzzled. He grabbed his collar with one hand and threw him directly into the hot spring beside him. Although the water in the pool was only up to his waist, he lost his balance when he was thrown in and choked on the water twice. He looked at her in disbelief and was so shocked and angry that he was speechless. After living for nearly 18 years, this was the first time that Dongfang Che was speechless. This made him speechless even more than when she had imprisoned him in the princess's mansion without caring about him. Bailey Wu Yu, however, acted calm and gave him a giggle. He took out various medicinal powders from his mustard seed bag and sprinkled them into the hot spring while explaining. Are you angry now? If one works tirelessly and overdraws his immortal energy, a journey that would take at least a month to complete has been shortened to less than half a month. Who allowed you to do this? Are you trying to kill yourself? Although Bailey Wu Yu's tone was light when she said the last four words, Dongfang Che could feel that she was angry. It's rare that I feel a little guilty. But he sat stubbornly in the hot spring, turned his face away, and stopped talking. His tense jawline showed that he was not in a very good mood at the moment. How could Bailey Wu Yu not know the nature of this silent and stubborn donkey? With a helpless sigh, her expression softened. Ellipsis. Chapter 499a, You like me too, right? Sighing silently, Bailey Wu Yu silently quickened his movements, making sure to put all the medicines that would quickly heal the body into the hot spring, and his tone became gentle. You are obviously worried about me, but you also have to believe in my ability. Since I was a child, the Queen Mother has regarded me as a thorn in her side, hating me for standing in the way of her and her beloved daughter. Bailey Wu Yu and Bailey Wu Yu did everything they could to kill me. If I didn't have any skills, how could I have survived till now? Dongfang Che's eyes, as clear as a mountain spring, flashed with an unconcealable pity. When he first met her, he realized that she was not as cynical as she appeared. The appearance of waste was just a protective color she deliberately created. But no matter how clever he was still a teenager. At first he did not understand why she did that, but he could vaguely guess. Now that I hear her say it herself, the pain deep in my heart can no longer be hidden. He felt sorry for her. He cares about her. So much so that when he spoke, his voice was hoarse and could not be suppressed. Since you knew they would kill you, they would never agree to you marrying the eldest son of the Dongfang family. Why did you risk coming to southern Xinjiang to quell the rebellion? They won't acknowledge your abilities at all. Who said I wanted them to admit it? Bailey Wu Yu smiled frivolously and raised his eyebrows towards Dongfang Che proudly. I want the approval of my future mother-in-law and my two sisters. Otherwise, how could they trust you to me? You. Dongfang Che didn't know how many times he had been speechless today. When their eyes met, the ripples in his heart surged, completely unlike before, which he could still suppress by force. He knew that it was true that she liked him, but she was definitely not like Bailey Wu Yu and other women who were greedy for his appearance and the power that the Dongfang family could bring them. But he didn't expect that she knew that this trip was a life or death one, but she was still willing to go on it just to gain the approval of his family. While he was dazed, Dongfang Che suddenly noticed that the hot spring water was shaking. When I came to my senses, Bailey Wu Yu's beautiful face was already right in front of me. He couldn't help but exclaim in surprise and instinctively stepped back. Unexpectedly, there was a rock wall of a mountain spring behind him, leaving him with nowhere to retreat. He was locked in the middle by her domineering arms. Although she is tall, her frame is extremely petite. Dongfang Che has always stood out among men. If the two of them stood together, she would actually only reach his shoulders. But in the current situation, he is the one being bullied. Bailey Wu Yu realized that Dongfang Che only retreated and dodged at first, and then did not push her away or resist her anymore. She felt a surge of excitement for no reason and moved closer to him. Hey, you like me too, right? Who said that? Seeing that he was still stubborn, Bailey Wu Yu was not annoyed, but the smile on his face deepened. If you didn't like me, why would you come to southern Xinjiang without caring about anything? Imperial descendants and nobles are not allowed to leave the imperial capital without imperial decree. You disregarded all of this for me, and you still say you don't like me. Hearing this, Dongfang Che stopped arguing. His ears turned red, but he stubbornly refused to meet her gaze. After a long while, he finally squeezed out a very low voice. Ever since you had Nangong Yan, have you ever treated me with the same care as before? Men are nothing but embellishments to you. Chapter 500 Why not? Do it now. Who said that? If I were to treat men as decoration, I would have already had a garden full of spring. Why would I have poured my heart out to you alone for so many years? Facing Dongfang Che's clear yet accusing gaze, Bailey Wu Yu felt guilty for a moment and mumbled. Nangong Yan was an accident. He was drugged by Feng Yu Tower in order to save Yi Xincheng, and... Hey. I admit that he is the second man besides you that I have feelings for. But you will always be the first, my throne can only be yours. But you and him. As a man who is not yet married, Dongfang Che still finds it difficult to talk about what happened with Nangong Yan. Bailey Wu Yu was stunned for a moment, and finally realized what Dongfang Che meant. His eyes, which looked like a deer or a fox, instantly shone brighter than the stars. Ah Che, you care so much, but are you jealous? Who is jealous? When his real problem was revealed, Dongfang Che was like a cat whose tail was stepped on, with his fur standing on end. Your cheeks are puffy with anger, and you still say you're not jealous. Bailey Wu Yu tapped Dongfang Che's unconsciously bulging cheeks, and before the other party completely got angry, he once again did something that shocked him to the point of shocking earth-shattering. He began to take off his clothes. Outer robe, inner garment, and even belly band. Stop, Bailey Wu Yu. You, what are you doing? Dongfang Che was so angry that he was shaking all over, his face red as a boiled shrimp. How dare you humiliate me like this? Seeing that Dongfang Che had misunderstood, Bailey Wu Yu quickly explained. What are you thinking about? I showed you the blood-red toad blood on my chest. Otherwise, how could you believe that I didn't go back on my word? Although Nangong Yan and I have had many intimate moments, I promised to leave the last step to you. How could I break my promise? Seeing that Dongfang Che still had his jawline tense and refused to look at her, Bailey Wu Yu's fair little hands forcefully turned his face over. Look for yourself, is my toad blood real or fake? As he spoke, Bailey Wu Yu directly pulled Dongfang Che's slender jade-like fingers and pressed them on the cinnabar red skin on her chest. An extremely strong electric current spread from that place, and the bodies of the two people trembled uncontrollably. When their eyes met, some indescribable feeling spread through each other's body and mind with overwhelming force. Once it starts, it's out of control. Bailey Wu Yu and Nangong Yan had met so many times before, how could he not understand what was happening to him? In order not to offend Dongfang Che, he used all his willpower in this life to force himself to step back a foot. But the next moment, she was shocked to find a pair of hot hands on her waist, pulling her back with an unquestionable firmness. Almost, he pressed her into his arms. Ugh, ugh. The rest of the words were interrupted by Dongfang Che's unfamiliar yet powerful kiss. As the most privileged young master of aristocratic family in the imperial capital, he has almost lost all his dignity since he became entangled with Bailey Wu Yu. Perhaps it was the long period of physical exhaustion that made his will no longer as strong as before. Maybe it's the hot spring water that makes everything look hazy and dreamy. Maybe he didn't want to wait anymore, nor did he want to endure it anymore. Since it's destined to be her, what does it matter if it's earlier or later? There are countless obstacles ahead, and the two don't know when they will be able to accomplish anything good. Why not? Do it now. Dongfang Che made up his mind and explored according to his instinct. Even though his hands were shaking with nervousness, he had no intention of stopping. Ellipsis. Chapter 501, The Eastern Army and the Black Armor Army are both gone. Hey. This time it was Bailey Wu Yu's turn to be at a loss. It wasn't that she didn't want to, but how could she bear to be so rude to the person she loved so dearly? But Dongfang Che seemed to have made up his mind, and this time he was more determined than ever before. The kiss became more and more passionate, and his body became more and more hot. Even speaking, he couldn't bear to leave her lips. Hasn't it always been love? I let you love me, but why are you afraid now? You, Che, don't provoke me. The impulses of women in countries where women are superior to men are just like the impulses of men in countries where men are superior to men, and are several times stronger than those of men in countries where women are superior to men. Being so affectionate with the man she loved, Bailey Wu Yu almost reached the breaking point, or at least a little further. Wrong. If they remained in such an intimate state, she would not be able to control herself. Dongfang Che didn't want her to control herself at all, and his voice was low and panting, indescribably sexy. I didn't ask you to endure it. And he didn't want to endure it anymore. The hot springs are so charming, once you start, you can't stop. Little did they know that during that day and night, a drastic change had occurred outside. This also made several people who knew about another parallel time and space more than 300 years later understand that some things cannot be changed no matter how many times they are repeated. Perhaps all they can change is to let the authorities know the truth of the matter. When Bailey Wu Yu returned to the Eastern Army's camp with unprecedented joy, the scene of blood flowing like a river instantly wiped out her good mood. Dongfang Che, who was beside her, seemed to be under a spell of immobilization. He couldn't even blink his eyes. The blood in his body was flowing backwards and he felt as cold as iron. The next moment, a beam of fire shot straight into the sky, accompanied by Bailey Wu Yu's indignant roar. Bailey Wu Yu colluded with the southern border mob to plot a rebellion. After the Eastern Army discovered his intentions, they were brutally silenced by Bailey Wu Yu's Black Armor Army. Fortunately, I led my troops to arrive in time and killed all the rebel Shuanjie troops. Soldiers, listen up. Follow me to kill the traitor Bailey Wu Yu, eradicate the cholera in southern Xinjiang, and safeguard the Lingyuan Kingdom's court for eternity. Kill. Kill, kill, kill. The morale of the army led by Bailey Wu Yu soared, but they only shouted slogans and did not take action against Bailey Wu Yu for the time being. Seeing his compatriots, who had fought alongside him through thick and thin, all fall down, Bailey Wu Yu's expression was no better than Dongfang Che's. However, he still managed to remain calm and held Dongfang Che's hand tightly. Hey, I didn't. Master, run away, don't be fooled by Bailey Wu Yu. Axia's desperate shouting interrupted Bailey Wuyu's pale explanation. Severely injured and weak, he was supported by someone and stood beside Bailey Wuyu's horse. He tearfully accused Bailey Wuyu of his crimes. Sir, the general and his men trusted Bailey Wuyu's Black Armor army and brought them into the barracks to entertain them. Unexpectedly, they put a drug that restricted the general's cultivation in his food, and launched a surprise attack in the middle of the night to slaughter the entire Eastern army. When we were being hunted before, those mobs tried to cover up the fact that they were in cahoots with Bailey Wuyu, and we didn't believe them. But the facts proved that Bailey Wuyu would do anything to achieve his goal. Son. She only cares about power and the throne. Our Dongfang family has been almost wiped out by her Black Armor army. If Her Highness the Crown Princess hadn't arrived in time to rescue her subordinates, these truths would have been buried in obscurity. Upon hearing this, unprecedented despair struck Bailey Wuyu's heart. Confused, hesitant, sad, exclaiming, helpless. Chapter 502, It's okay to forget it. Even if Bailey Wuyu was dissatisfied with Axia, who was always protective of her son, she knew that Axia would never be bribed by Bailey Wuyu. What he said about her Black Armor army massacring the Eastern army was most likely true. How can it be? Those were the closest and most trusted forces she had cultivated personally. Moreover, based on their cultivation and abilities, how could they be so easily sorted by Bailey Wuyu's army? In just a few breaths, Bailey Wuyu figured out the crux of the matter. His eyes were as sharp as torches, shooting directly at Bailey Wuyu. It's you. Not doubt, but certainty. Bailey Wuyu must have used some shameful and evil method. If she could make the Dongfang army lose its ability to resist, she would also be able to make her Xuanjia army lose its combat capability. In an instant, Bailey Wuyu was filled with regret and overwhelming resentment. She could foresee that the Queen and Bailey Wuyu would use any possible means to get rid of her and her forces. But she didn't expect that this was to completely alienate her and Dongfang Che. In order to put her in a great injustice. They actually attacked the Eastern army that had been loyal to the Lingyuan kingdom for more than 300 years. Even the Dongfang family in the imperial capital might have been involved in Bailey Wuyu's bloodbath. How could her archer endure all this? Just as she thought of this, Dongfang Che beside her suddenly rushed towards the sea of blood where the Dongfang army and the Xuanjia army fell like a madman, shouting at the top of his lungs, searching for his mother and sister. At this moment, Bailey Wuyu's eyes instantly turned red. Holding a long sword, he entered the Purgatory Shura. Bailey Wuyu, how dare you? Bailey Wuyu's pupils instinctively shrank for a moment, but he quickly forced himself to calm down. You heartless traitor, I have been ordered to hang you. I am acting in the name of justice and to comfort the spirits of the fallen Eastern army. If you still have an ounce of conscience left in you, you should end your life, curse your own soul, let it turn to ashes, and never enter the cycle of reincarnation. Soldiers. Kill him for me. Because Dongfang Che was far away from Bailey Wuyu no longer had to worry about anything. Because Dongfang Che was far away from Bailey Wuyu no longer had to worry about anything, and there was an unprecedented sense of relief in his eyes. So what if Bailey Wuyu is the crown princess? So what if he is a genius? So what if you have extraordinary strategies? The Queen Mother had seen through her tricks long ago and had allowed her to develop, just waiting to give her a fatal blow. When loved ones betray you, close friends sacrifice themselves, even the one you love deeply hates you. Faced with such a miserable life of being abandoned by everyone, Bailey Wuyu doesn't believe that Bailey Wuyu still has the faith to live. What's more, her army was specially trained to target Bailey Wuyu's dual cultivation of spirit and body. Even if Bailey Wuyu could defeat 10,000 alone, she had an army of hundreds of thousands, and could wear Bailey Wuyu down to death through a continuous battle. In addition, there were poisoned archers outside aiming at Bailey Wuyu and shooting her, and there was also poisonous fog that suppressed her cultivation, which completely restricted Bailey Wuyu's various auxiliary functions of spiritual cultivation, forcing her to rely solely on pure physical cultivation to withstand these millions of attacks. After a few hours, she had many wounds on her body and her whole body was stained red with blood. But he is like a wolf fighting alone, he would rather die in battle than surrender. No worries for 100 miles. You and Bailey Dan are ungrateful and kill loyal people to achieve your goals. Such an empress and royal family are destined to be destroyed. Even if you can strangle me today, there will definitely be someone who can wipe out your Bailey clan in the future. Although he knew that Bailey Wuyu was making a last-ditch effort, his whispers sounded like a curse, making Bailey Wuyu inexplicably confused. When she realized what was happening, she realized that she had been completely thrown into disarray by Bailey Wuyu's words. She became even more furious and immediately issued a death order. Increase all firepower to maximum and kill the traitor Bailey Wuyu immediately. Yes. Magical weapons, poison, rain of arrows, flashing swords and sabers. It reached its peak in an instant. Bailey Wuyu showed no fear at all. He gave a low roar and rushed towards the overwhelming enemy army again. At this moment, another faster figure rushed towards Bailey Wuyu at an even faster speed, carrying endless hatred. Bailey Wuyu, give me your life. Bailey Wuyu paused his attack and saw poison arrows and other attacks coming towards the two of them, so he quickly blocked them for Dongfang Che. The next moment, she felt an icy dagger pressed against her chest. As he lowered his eyes, Bailey Wuyu's pupils shrank slightly. This dagger is the Immortal Slayer. If the heart is pierced, even the most powerful immortal will have his soul shattered and will never be able to enter the cycle of reincarnation. Hey. Don't talk, hold me hostage. Dongfang Che interrupted Bailey Wuyu in a low voice. While he was speaking, he had set up an anti-eavesdropping array in the area between the two of them so that Bailey Wuyu could not hear anything. In addition, his lips didn't move much when he spoke. Watching from afar, one could see him trembling with grief and anger. Seeing Bailey Wuyu remained indifferent, Dongfang Che growled again. Hold me hostage. Escape and avenge my mother and the others. You. Quick. Without asking the reason, Bailey Wuyu was already most pleased to gain Dongfang Che's trust. She no longer felt sad and mournful. She quickly snatched the Immortal Slash from Chan's hand and placed it on his neck. She looked at Bailey Wuyu, who was directing the strangulation not far away. If your man takes another step forward, I will kill him. After a pause, seeing that Bailey Wuyu was still hesitating, Bailey Wuyu continued to throw out chips. The future heir to the throne of Lingyuan Nation, leading an army of 1,000,000, can even protect the orphans of the Eastern Army. If this gets out, won't everyone laugh at him? Bailey Wuyu gritted his teeth. He couldn't stand Bailey Wuyu being so rebellious at the moment of his death, but he could do nothing about it. In order to consolidate the royal status, Dongfang Che must survive. Moreover, he had to be her rightful ruler who was safe and sound in order to demonstrate the royal grace. Just imagine, even if Dongfang Che lost the support of the Dongfang family and the Dongfang army, the royal family still let him sit on the throne of the legitimate monarch. This is the power and grace of heaven, and it is a move to win the hearts of the people. But this does not mean that Bailey Wuyu will let Bailey Wuyu go. She continued to have her army press forward, pushing her to the edge of the precipice between humans and the demons, sneering. Bailey Wuyu, if you take another step back, you will reach the demonic cliff where your immortal power is completely incapable of exerting any influence. Are you sure you want to take our Che with you and die with him? Dongfang Che stiffened slightly, as if he could anticipate Bailey Wuyu's decision, and warned in a low voice. If you dare jump off the cliff alone, I will marry Bailey Wuyu when I return to Beijing. Bailey Wuyu's mouth was slightly bitter, and his sigh was filled with endless compassion. You will not. In the past, Dongfang Che would have felt happy that Bailey Wuyu understood him because of this feeling of being seen through. Now, I feel helpless and panicked, and just want to keep trying. If you really jump down alone, I will turn around and drink the love potion, and forget you completely. This time, it was Bailey Wuyu's turn to stiffen. After a while, she spoke again, with a hint of relief. Forget it, that's fine. Ellipsis. Chapter 503, Survive, and Avenge Me. The next moment, Dongfang Che felt a force so strong that he could not resist at all, which lifted him into the air. He turned around in panic, his blood rushing backwards. Bailey Wuyu. Thousands of arrows were fired at the same time, and thousands of weapons rang out at the same time, hitting Bailey Wuyu directly. The latter tapped his toes lightly and fell into the demon fairy cliff without hesitation. From beginning to end, she didn't even look at the swords and sabers that wanted to take her life. Wherever his eyes went, he only fixed his gaze on Dongfang Che's figure. It seemed as if he wanted to engrave everything about him deep into his soul. As beautiful and happy as everything was last night, what we experienced today is as heartbreaking. Forgive her selfishness for not being able to take him to a certain death. Live well and avenge me. She lip read so he could understand. At this moment, Bailey Wuyu didn't dare to say, love, to Dongfang Che anymore. She was afraid that he would really commit suicide for love. How could she bear to do that? As smart as he is, even though all the evidence at the scene pointed to her Black Armor army slaughtering the Eastern Army, he still chose to believe her. Otherwise, he would not have deliberately rushed towards her with the immortal slayer in his hand, but let her hold him hostage and give her a way out. Therefore, he would only live if he could avenge her. The Bailey royal family rules the entire Lingyuan kingdom, and it is not easy to overthrow their rule. But Bailey Wuyu believed that Dongfang Che had the ability, it just might take more time. When the time comes for him to kill her enemies, I hope he will no longer be obsessed with following her. Really do it, live well. But Bailey Wuyu didn't know that the moment he saw her fall off the cliff, Dongfang Che's soul seemed to fall with her. The whole world seemed to be dark. The next moment, he spit out a mouthful of blood and then fainted completely. He was caught by Axia, who rushed over. Ellipsis. As for Bailey Wuyu, who had been falling, he had tried to save himself. But Bailey Wuyu's trick was too insidious. The poisonous fog not only prevented her from exerting her magical power, but also suppressed her true energy. It is impossible to save yourself from the acceleration of free fall by relying solely on fist and kick skills. She could only close her eyes reluctantly. At least in this life, she finally experienced love and being loved, and she got it. But why? It makes me feel even more regretful. Just when Bailey Wuyu's regret and resentment reached its peak, a soft object was wrapped around her waist. Immediately afterwards, she was pulled towards the shore by an extremely powerful force. When he opened his eyes again, Bailey Wuyu was stunned for a moment. Nangong Yan. We haven't been following you for just one day, and you've already been injured like this. What can we say to you? Although Nangong Yan was complaining, her heart and eyes were filled with heartache. This attitude made Bailey Wuyu laugh and cry, but before he could respond, he felt dizzy and passed out. Nangong Yan quickly caught her and sighed helplessly. We're stuck on the cliff again. Let's think about where to go next. I can't go back to Lingyuan country for the time being. I guess they're still trying to eliminate Junior Sister's forces. Ning Luo said coldly. Ji Chen rarely used the imperial skills he had learned when he was a prince in the mortal world. Let's go to the Yun family, a celestial family. They are the family of my Junior Sister's father and have always supported me. Junior Sister's Shranjia army was secretly established by the Yun family. As long as the Yun family trusts Junior Sister, they will definitely help her. If you help your Junior Sister overthrow the rule of the Bailey royal family, her obsession may be resolved. Ellipsis. Chapter 504 Strange Silence. Sichu Yuna looked at the fainted Bailey Wuyu, then looked at the top of the cliff, and suddenly had a bold guess. Do you think there is a possibility that during Yuyu's sixth life, more than 300 years ago, Dongfang Che was also putting on an act? Is it because Bailey Wuyu was in danger and unaware of it, and in fact, just like now, he used the slaying a mortal as a cover to confuse Bailey Wuyu and the others, but in fact, to save Bailey Wuyu? Upon hearing this, except for the fainted Bailey Wuyu, the other four people froze, and then all looked at Sichu Yuna. As they exchanged glances, the expressions of the five of them became more and more complicated. If what Chu Yu said was true, she and Dongfang Che had very little communication in their sixth life, and the relationship must have been extremely strained. A silent stubborn donkey, a violent firecracker. If he were to encounter the same situation just now, Chu Yu would most likely just kill himself. Realizing that this was the truth, the five of them felt sympathy for Dongfang Che at the same time. No wonder this guy had been looking for Chu Yu's reincarnation for over 300 years, and when she finally showed up, she still pretended not to know him. Fortunately, they all met Chu Yu more than 300 years later, otherwise, they would probably be more desperate than Dongfang Che. You guys, what are you all doing here? Yi Xincheng is a music cultivator. Just now, when he and Nangong Yan and others were hiding in the Demon Fairy Cliff to rescue Bailey Wuyu, he was knocked unconscious by the impact of demonic energy. He slowly woke up at this moment, looking at Nangong Yan and 5 other men surrounding the unconscious Bailey Wuyu. He always felt that this scene was familiar, but he was sure that such a scene had never appeared in his memory. He was very confused. Facing Yi Xincheng's confused eyes, Nangong Yan sighed helplessly. Don't ask anything, just follow us. Yi Xincheng opened and closed his mouth, but in the end he didn't ask a single word and just followed them silently. Ellipsis. Half a month later, in the imperial capital, Dongfang Mansion. After Dongfang Che woke up, he didn't speak a word all the way from southern Xinjiang back to the imperial capital. Most people thought that he was in this state because the eastern army was almost wiped out and he suffered a severe blow. This was exactly what the eldest Princess Bailey Wuyu and the Empress wanted. They put the blame on Bailey Wuyu and described her as an unforgivable evildoer with a cruel heart. The entire Lingyuan kingdom and the surrounding countries hated Bailey Wuyu deeply. It was a pity that such a heartless disaster was finally eliminated. When Dongfang Che heard all this, he remained indifferent. Axia's tears fell straight down. Young master, you haven't eaten, slept, or closed your eyes for half a month. Although you are gifted, the immortal energy in this imperial capital is thin, and it also restricts your cultivation. If this continues, you won't be able to bear it. Sir, if the general and the 2 young ladies are still alive, they would definitely not want to see you like this. Son. No matter what was said, Dongfang Che ignored her. Axia was afraid that she would annoy him if she talked too much, so she quietly retreated and waited outside the house. Only after Axia left did Dongfang Che raise his eyes slightly. In those midnight-like eyes, there flickered a heart-throbbing depth. The photo stone he had held in his hand for more than 10 days had rubbed his palm until it bled and then dried up, and then rubbed his palm until it bled again. The next moment, Dongfang Che seemed to have evaporated in the house, leaving no trace. But a few moments before Axia came in during dinner, Dongfang Che was always able to return to his original position accurately. This went on for more than 3 months until news came that the eldest Princess Bailey Wuyu was canonized as the Crown Princess and Dongfang Che was married to her as the Crown Princess. Ellipsis. Chapter 505, No Trouble. Son. Axia called softly, but her eyes were always on her own master, revealing a hint of worry and helplessness. She knew very well that her young master did not have much affection for the eldest princess. Oh no, now it should be said that Her Royal Highness the Crown Princess Bailey Wuyu. However, this is an imperial decree. Axia couldn't help but sigh inwardly. If she couldn't even see this, then wouldn't it be a waste of all these years for her to follow the young master? However, faced with such an imperial edict, how should the young master respond? Axia was extremely anxious. She knew that the young master's current condition was really worrying. The Eastern Army was completely annihilated, and the young master's parents have both passed away. There aren't many people left in the mansion. If the young master disobeys the order, the consequences will be unimaginable. Axia didn't dare to imagine the terrible consequences. She only felt a chill running down her spine. Will the young master commit suicide because of this? The thought flashed through her mind, causing her heart to tighten instantly. Thinking of this, Axia suddenly knelt down towards Dongfang Che, her eyes instantly red. Sir, I beg you, please don't do anything stupid. Axia knelt on the ground, hugged the young man's legs tightly with her hands, and begged with tears on her face. He was well aware that there was a difference in status between him and the young master, but in his heart, the young master was not only his master, but also his heaven and his relative. Axia was an orphan and helpless since childhood. It was the young master who took him in and gave him a home. Over the years, the young master has taken great care of him, just like an older brother. Now, the young master is going to do something extremely dangerous. How can Axia not be anxious? Sir, I know that my status is low and I am not worthy to be mentioned in the same breath as you, but my loyalty to you is known to all, and heaven and earth can bear witness to it. Axia raised her head and looked at the young master earnestly. I lost my parents when I was young. If it weren't for you, I would have starved to death on the streets. I will never forget your kindness to me. At this point, Axia's voice was choked with sobs, and tears flowed from his eyes like a flood that broke through a dam. Sir, I will always be with you, I will always be with you. No matter how many difficulties and obstacles we encounter, I will never leave you. Axia continued to speak while sobbing. Could you please not abandon your subordinates? If you leave, the entire Dongfang family will be left with no one. His words were filled with despair and helplessness, as if the whole world had collapsed at this moment. Who said I was leaving? Pei Chia cried for a long time before she suddenly heard Dongfang Che speak. She thought she was in a trance. Sir, did you say anything just now? Dongfang Che slowly raised his eyebrows, his eyes filled with a deep, unbreakable gloom, and he said, lightly. As Axia was stunned, she became increasingly confused about what her young master was thinking. After pondering for a long time, he said more carefully. Sir, the eldest princess has sent a betrothal gift that stretches 10 miles long. I have been waiting in the hall for a long time. Do you think, should we go out and meet her? Not see. But. Not until we get married. Although he knew that this might anger Bailey Wuyu, this was the first time Dongfang Che had spoken in the past 3 months. Achia didn't want to push him too hard, so he could only retreat. But facing the eldest princess with an ugly expression, Axia felt guilty and could only lie. Ellipsis. Chapter 506 Wedding. Fortunately, when Bailey Wu Yu heard that Dongfang Che was willing to marry her, her originally gloomy mood instantly dissipated like sunlight penetrating through clouds. A dignified smile reappeared on her face, as if the previous gloom had never existed. Not only that, Bailey Wu Yu also quickly took a series of actions. She placed many people in Dongfang Mansion, ostensibly to help Dongfang Mansion hold a lively wedding. After all, there are indeed fewer people in Dongfang Mansion now. However, Axia keenly realized that this was more like a disguised form of house arrest to prevent Dongfang Che from escaping. Axia thought to herself, even she could clearly feel that her master had no feelings for Bailey Wu Yu. How could Bailey Wu Yu be unaware of it? At present, Bailey Wu Yu has become the crown princess. Any concubine in her palace has a powerful force behind her, and any one of them can bring great help to Bailey Wu Yu. But she insisted on letting Dongfang Che be the legitimate king. Axia could guess the reason behind this. On the one hand, this allows Bailey Wu Yu to continue to maintain her affectionate persona, while also enhancing her credibility in the eyes of the public. On the other hand, such an arrangement can also demonstrate the emperor's grace and reflect her compassion for the orphans of martyrs. Time flies, and in the blink of an eye, half a month has passed. Finally, the day of the Crown Princess Bailey Wu Yu and Dongfang Che's wedding has arrived. On this day, the entire imperial capital was decorated with joyful red, and the streets and alleys were decorated with lights and colorful lanterns. People praised the newlyweds as a perfect match made in heaven, as if their union was destined. This pair of lovers are finally married. If Bailey Wu Yu hadn't raped Dongfang Che, forced the empress to cancel his engagement with the current crown princess, and confined Dongfang Che in her own palace, they might even have had a child. Impossible. You've just arrived in the imperial capital. Men from the Dongfang family generally don't have sex with women before they're married, or before they're completely determined to be with that woman. Even so, the current crown princess is so beautiful and noble, which man in the imperial capital would not want to marry her? Even though Dongfang Che was the most handsome man in the capital, how could he not fall deeply in love with such a charming woman? Even with the Dongfang family gone, the princess still insisted on marrying him as her legitimate ruler, which shows how deep her love for him was. If I were the young master Dongfang, I would have been so moved that I would have pledged my love to you. People like you only care about love. The Eastern Army has guarded our Lingyuan kingdom for nearly 700 years, and followed the founding queen of Lingyuan kingdom to expand the territory. They have always been the designated family of the queen. Now that the Dongfang army has suffered a devastating disaster, if the royal family only allows young master Dongfang to be a sidekick, that's all, you can figure out what happens next. No matter what, I still feel that it's a great relief that Bailey Wu Yu, this scourge, has been eliminated. Ellipsis. Dongfang Che heard the discussions of the people around him, but at first he remained unmoved. Until someone said that Bailey Wu Yu will not die a good death, his hands, which were under his clothes, suddenly clenched tightly and his eyelashes trembled. The next moment, the man who had just spoken ill of Bailey Wu Yu suddenly screamed, strangled his own neck, and suddenly screamed in pain. Ellipsis. Chapter 507 The royal scandal is revealed. The long street was already crowded and bustling, but suddenly this happened and the scene became chaotic. After Bailey Wu Yu, who was at the front, learned about this, he immediately ordered people to take the person who had suddenly behaved abnormally away, and the surrounding area gradually returned to normal order. After this incident, no one dared to talk about and curse the former crown princess Bailey Wu Yu so blatantly. But for some reason, Bailey Wu Yu always felt an inexplicable uneasiness in his heart. This feeling of uneasiness became more pronounced the closer they got to the imperial palace where the two were going to hold their wedding. Even when she was about to step into the palace gate, Bailey Wu Yu seemed to see the face of the person she feared and hated the most in the corner, Bailey Wu Yu. Bailey Wu Yu was deeply saddened and his face turned gloomy in an instant. When he was about to order someone to bring up the person who was suspected to be Bailey Wu Yu, the person disappeared without a trace. It seemed as if everything that just happened was just Bailey Wu Yu's illusion. Damn it. Bailey Wu Yu cursed inwardly, constantly reminding himself that Bailey Wu Yu had fallen into the Demon Fairy Cliff several months ago, and had fallen there while seriously injured. Even if Bailey Wu Yu was lucky enough not to die, Bailey Wu Yu had already reached an agreement with the royal family of the Demon Fairy clan and would not give Bailey Wu Yu a chance to survive. She must be dead, there is no way she would appear in the capital of Lingyuan kingdom. It must be so. It must be so. But no matter how Bailey Wu Yu tried to give her psychological hints, the uneasiness in her heart not only did not ease, but became more and more intense, and she couldn't even control the hostility between her eyebrows. Sister Taino, what's wrong with you? Bailey Wu Yu, who was accompanying her to the wedding, noticed something was wrong and quickly warned. Today, your wedding to young Master Dongfang is extraordinary. Queen Mother specifically chose the Xuanwu Palace, which is closest to the streets of the imperial capital. The palace gates will remain open throughout the wedding, allowing the people of the imperial capital to witness this grand wedding together. Even if young Master Dongfang still hasn't opened his heart to you, you must not show off at the wedding and let the people have a different opinion of the royal queen. After a pause, Bailey Wu Yu saw that Bailey Wu Yu's expression had eased slightly, knowing that she had listened, and moved closer, saying in a lower voice. Men love to show off. When you get his body, you can take good care of him. Now he has no one to rely on and no family to support him. I wonder if he will be submissive to you. Just bear with it for now, after tonight, everything will be up to you. Hearing this, Bailey Wu Yu thought of Dongfang Che's unparalleled figure, which was captivating even in loose clothes. Evil fire spread in his eyes. He suppressed the evil smile and nodded at Bailey Wu Yu. Just when Bailey Wu Yu had composed himself and was about to step into the gate of the Xuanwu Palace, a group of strange green birds that could speak human language suddenly flew over his head, chirping. At first, it was accompanied by the sound of birds, and no one could hear it clearly. But later, the voices of the bluebirds became more and more uniform, and everyone finally heard them clearly, but their faces changed drastically. The Empress's Ballad. The lights in the Purple Palace were dim at night, and 100,000 souls in the east were sorted. There is no need for a grassroots person to ascend to the Phoenix Palace, and there is no need for worrying about pearls and jade being trapped in prison. The body of the old man in Yunmen is still warm, and the ink of the new edict from the Golden Palace is still warm. In the past she took advantage of the situation to ascend to the throne, but now she is the one who murdered her husband. Ballad of the Empress. The lights in the Purple Palace were dim at night, and 100,000 souls in the east were sorted. These words and sentences are all about how the current Empress borrowed the power of the Yun family, a heavenly class family, to board the plane, but then assassinated her biological husband, Yun Chun, Bailey Wuyu's biological father. The 100,000 heroic souls of the Eastern Army were not killed by Bailey Wuyu in order to seize the throne, but were a means for the Empress and Bailey Wuyu to frame Bailey Wuyu. Ellipsis. Chapter 508 The truth is revealed. Now, it was difficult for the officials and people watching the ceremony to miss what the blue bird was singing. Bailey Wuyu's face turned pale, and no matter how hard he tried to maintain his image, the panic in his eyes could not be stopped. Bailey Wuyu became even more hesitant, with an undisguised murderous intent in his eyes. Someone is coming. Why don't you shoot these nonsense-talking beasts? How dare you spread such treasonous and inappropriate remarks on the day of the wedding of the future Crown Prince of Lingyuan Nation? Once I find out who spread these rumors, I will tear them into pieces. Someone come. Shoot. As soon as the kill order was given, countless arrows were shot towards the group of blue birds. The archers of the royal guards were all able to hit the target accurately from 100 paces away, but now not a single arrow could touch the feathers of these blue birds. As if controlled by a magical power, every time it was about to attack the group of bluebirds, it would turn around. This bizarre sight left the people stunned and stunned. They looked at each other, their eyes filled with disbelief and fear. However, despite all kinds of doubts and speculations surging in their hearts, they dared not speak rashly due to the royal majesty and could only bury the doubts deep in their hearts. Just when everyone was silent, a sudden voice broke the oppressive silence like thunder. This is the speaking truth bird that has survived from ancient times. It speaks only the truth and is not afraid of any harm from those with a guilty conscience. The sound was neither high nor low, but it seemed to have an invisible penetrating power. In this noisy environment, it was transmitted to everyone's ears with extraordinary clarity. People looked in the direction of the sound in astonishment, and saw a man standing in the crowd, as upright as the breeze and bright moon. He has a slender figure, elegant temperament, and is dressed in white clothes that are whiter than snow. He looks like a banished immortal, which is refreshing. If it were any other day, the third Princess Bailey Wuyu might have developed special feelings for such a man. However, at this moment, the anger and resentment in her heart had already drowned out all other emotions. Combined with what the man had just said, Bailey Wuyu's hatred for him reached its peak. She angrily scolded. Who are you, the monster? How dare you be so presumptuous in front of my Xuanwu palace? Die now. After saying that, Bailey Wuyu waved his sleeves, and another group of imperial guards rushed towards the man in white. But the man was not in a hurry. He raised his hand gently, and a soft light flashed. The royal guards seemed to be frozen and unable to move. When the people saw this, they were even more amazed and looked at the man with awe. Bailey Wuyu also realized the seriousness of the situation. He pretended to be calm and said, Who are you? Don't spread rumors here to confuse the public. The man smiled faintly, pulled out a photo stone from his bosom, and said, I am Jiang Xinbai. Today, I will let all the important officials and people of Lingyuan Kingdom see the truth about the death of 100,000 loyal souls of the Eastern Army. On the photo stone, the scene of Bailey Wuyu slaughtering 100,000 loyal souls of the Eastern Army and putting the blame on Bailey Wuyu a few months ago clearly emerged. Everyone watching the ceremony was in an uproar and talking about it. Bailey Wuyu's face turned pale, his legs went weak and he almost fell to the ground. Bailey Wuyu also stood there in a daze, his eyes full of despair. At this moment, Dongfang Che walked out slowly, and his bright red wedding dress instantly shattered into pieces, leaving only a long robe as black as ink. He and Jiang Xinbai looked at each other, one black and one white, and nodded in tacit understanding. The next moment, Dongfang Che turned around and looked at the Empress in the Golden Throne Hall. He asked coldly, his voice trembling slightly. Stupid ruler. I, the Eastern Army, have 100,000 heroic souls, but you brutally slaughtered them all just because you wanted to pave the way for Bailey Wuyu and get rid of him. A monarch like you who has lost all conscience is not fit to lead Lingyuan Nation anymore. Ellipsis. Chapter 509 The King Returns. A rare flash of panic suddenly appeared in the Queen's eyes, but it was fleeting, replaced by her thundering rage. Dongfang Che. Her voice was deafening, as if the entire palace was trembling. You are the only one left in the Dongfang family, Wu Yulian, and I, no matter what, I will make you the legitimate husband of the Crown Princess. However, Dongfang Che looked at the Queen without fear, and there was even a hint of contempt in his eyes. But you actually colluded with evil and created these fabricated things to disrupt the government. The Queen was furious. What you did is simply makes me feel so disappointed. Dongfang Che sneered and retorted. Who is causing chaos in the world? Who is deceiving and harming the people? His voice was cold and firm, without any respect for the Queen. The Queen was so angry at his words that she trembled all over. She widened her eyes and stared at Dongfang Che, as if she wanted to see through him. Dongfang Che looked at the Empress without flinching, his heart filled with resentment towards the Empress and the entire Bailey royal family except Bailey Wuyu. The bloody scene on the day when the Eastern Army was massacred is still vivid in our minds. Dongfang Che searched for his mother Dongfang Ya in a pool of blood like a madman. Finally, he found his dying mother in the mess. When Dongfang Ya was dying, she used up her last bit of strength to put the photo stone into Dongfang Che's hand. Dongfang Che did not look at the photo stone at that time, but he firmly believed that Bailey Wuyu was absolutely innocent. Facts have proved that he was right to trust Bailey Wuyu. But she. Dongfang Che lowered his eyes to suppress the deep sorrow that was so thick that it could not be dissolved, and suddenly sent a seal signal into the air. In a moment, the Star Guards, wearing black armor, black masks, and a golden star on the left side of their hearts swarmed out and surrounded the entire palace. Seeing this, Bailey Wuyu, who was closest to Dongfang Che, lost her usual composure and tried to calm Dongfang Che down. Hey. What are you doing? Why don't you withdraw these people quickly? This is a great disrespect to the royal family, and all 9 generations of the clan will be executed. Don't just listen to one side of the story and believe it. The photo stone is absolutely fake and false. I have always been fond of you, so how could I possibly massacre your parents, sister, and 100,000 Eastern Army soldiers? Oh. Yeah. While speaking, Dongfang Che did not look at Bailey Wuyu, but his tone was calm and did not sound angry, which made Bailey Wuyu mistakenly think that there was still room for maneuver. He could not help but move closer, wanting to hold his hand. Ah Che, it must be that demon in white who bewitched you, right? Don't believe him, quickly withdraw the troops, and I'll plead with the Queen Mother on your behalf. Let's go ahead with the wedding, okay? Ah. A sarcastic chuckle escaped from Dongfang Che's lips. What if I say that the photo stone was handed to me by my mother herself? What? Ah. Before Bailey Wuyu could react, a mortal slayer, that was supposed to kill her had already pierced her heart accurately. The next moment, she felt her entire soul was burning, and she couldn't escape resentment at all. No worries. Sister Princess. The Queen and Bailey Wuyu's eyes were bloodshot, and they almost teleported to Dongfang Che to stop him. The next moment, an extremely overbearing force bounced them both away. A voice they had never dreamed of struck their brain nerves. You think you can hurt my man? Ellipsis.